I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education on January 27th, 2022 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being conducted in person with an option to join remotely using communication technology. Instructions for joining the meeting remotely and participating in public comments have been posted on the district website and sent to Watchung Borough and the Watchung Public Library, as well as to the school community through an email blast. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Members of the public also have been given the option to submit public comments to the board secretary via email or written letter no later than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Individuals submitting comments via email or written letter must state their names and addresses. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella?
Here.
Mr. Buccarelli?
Here.
Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Ingrassia?
Here.
Mr. Kraft? Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Narad?
Here.
Ms. Sadvani?
Here.
Mrs. Scharf?
Here.
We have 8 board members present.
Okay, we're going to have a presentation of our annual audit for the 2020 to 2021 by Valerie Dolan. Welcome, Valerie, and you can take it away.
Great, thank you. Hopefully all can hear me loud and clear. Just to introduce myself, I am Valerie Dolan with Nisavacha. I am the district's auditors. Sorry that I could not be there in person today. I found myself quarantined due to my exposure, and I'm trying to stay safe and do the right thing and stay home today. So I do want to go over the audit. I know it's a little bit late in the game here delivering the audit, but there were delays and various things that have held up the report beyond the district's control. So we are here now presenting the audit. To give you a little bit of a refresher, because not everybody, I am a once a year kind of presentation. You have 2 reports that you get from us. One is the comprehensive financial report, which is the larger, bigger file, whether you have them electronically or the hard copy. And then there's a smaller book, which is the management's report. That's my report to the district on all of the things that I audit, find, and any findings we may have. In the larger audit, it's really broken into 4 main sections. There's a small introductory section, which talks a little bit about the district itself, lists all your officials, your consultants, your advisors. It's got an organizational chart. Obviously, the largest section is the financial section, and in that financial section is my opinion on the report. There's also a management's discussion and analysis, which gives some budget history, along with obviously the financial statements and the notes to the financial statements. There is a J section, which is actually a very informative section. It's the statistical section. That gives you 10 years comparative data. And it also gives you 10 years comparative data of the district. It gives you information about the county of Somerset, and it gives you information about the borough of Watchung. So there's a lot of good, useful, especially as a tool if you're trying to gain some history on a little bit of information. And then lastly, there's a single audit section. In that single audit section, that's our review of all of your grant funding and all of the compliance associated with any granting agencies. That being said, obviously it's a very lengthy report. We always direct everybody probably to the main issue of the whole report, which if you have your CAFR and want to follow along, it starts on page 82 and runs about 10 pages. This 10-page report is pretty much the district's in a nutshell. What it does is it gives you your budget. It walks you through your budget, each of the revenue line items, where those revenues landed, budget versus actual, and it gives you your expenses to the same. It gives you all of your expenses, any transfers, adjustments that might have been made, and it gets you to the end of the day, how well did the district do when we finished our year. That being said, you land with what we refer to as fund balance. That fund balance is then broken down into various associated buckets, as we call them, for which sets things aside. You have money set aside in a capital reserve. That money is about a little over $1 million. It's $1,077,571 and $571. That's capital reserve money that's set aside to be used for any capital improvements within the district or for any kind of local match that you might have for any state additional awards on projects. That money can be set aside and can be either utilized by board resolution or brought through the budget cycle to be done. Additionally, this year, there is an unemployment compensation reserve that is listed. If you were here last year for my presentation, I told you there was a new accounting standard and there'd be a new presentation. Previously, unemployment was reported in a separate fund, and under the new change, it is now part of your general fund, but earmarked. That's money that's been collected and is held to pay future unemployment claims. There's a little over $50,000 in that account. You have an additional $107,638 of encumbrances that were spent from the budget and carried into the current year. You utilized $203,036 to support the budget that you're in currently. And then that leaves you with your two biggest numbers that we refer to. The first one is your undesignated fund balance, which is the amount that the district is allowed to hold and anticipate as need be. This year, that amount is actually over $1 million. It's $1,042,019. That's actually double as to what you've had in previous years. And the reason is there was legislation passed that for the next 2 years, districts can hold 4% of their fund balance, not 2% as previously. In the third year, it will revert back to the 2%. And the reason the state passed that legislation is to give districts the ability to obviously deal with the pandemic and any unforeseen costs that may come in, possibly opening, closing as we see fit. So that money is given a little cushion for the district. When all is said and done, that leaves you with what we call your excess surplus. That's the money that you'll be required to utilize when building your budget you're currently working on now. And that amount is $456,977. So that's what you'll be required to use to build into the budget as you're building it. Some additional financial highlights. The district receives about $350,000 a year in grant accounting and grant funds. Those are local, federal, state grants, and they're detailed in your special revenue fund. And then lastly, you have, a small milk fund. So your milk fund is actually doing quite well. It always has done well. I think in the past, we've been here telling you have too much money in your milk fund, which is, the bitter-edged sword of things. So that being said, that's really your financials. You're in very good shape. You're poised to build your budget very well. I do have a small management report with my review. I'm happy to say that a large number of the recommendations that were in the report last year have been resolved and are no longer included in our report. We do have two recommendations that we refer to as housekeeping. They're not monumental. However, corrective action is required and it is on your agenda for the approval of the corrective action plan. Those are in the area of an analysis of payroll that needs to be documented and some additional reporting. I believe you have that. Rich sent me a copy that you also have for travel. In addition to those two small minor recommendations, one of the things we like to do is look forward. So I do include in the report suggestions to management, areas that have either been problematic for other districts and or things that are future and going to affect your district. One of them is, as the accounting standards are constantly evolving, one of them is it'll be a new accounting standard, and I will once again have to change things for next year. This standard is a little bit more complicated and a little more complex. It's GASB 87, and it's the accounting for leases. That is going to be effective. And under that standard, we are going to have to review every single lease in the district and analyze monthly allocations of any payments that you made. We are in the process of actually reviewing softwares, because it's actually got to be done through like almost another outside agency to track all those leases. So we're actually reviewing them as we speak now, as they could be reported. There could be potential reporting of leases. As you all know, there's a large number of grant funds coming through to the districts under the forms of ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, which are all of the COVID-related grant funds. That is obviously, as I've been telling a lot of people, they're coming to do desk reviews. Rich shared with me that were selected and they are going to be looking at those. Our concern always with those grants is when I come in and I review, we spend a lot of time in the district and talk about things as you're going. When these outside agencies come in, they want the information, and then they leave. And they're either happy with your response at the first bite at the apple, and they go from there. So what we've always told everybody is document, 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 so that you have everything that you have for when they do come. I know that's probably been a lot of Rich's focus lately, getting ready for them to come out and monitor. And then the last piece really comes down to, it's not really hit on the school board side, but we've seen it heavily in our municipal clients. It comes back to the accrued compensated absences and leave. One of those areas we always suggest, make sure you review your contract, have your labor attorneys review your contracts, and make sure that your contracts are in accordance with the state. The state comptroller did go out to various municipalities and review a lot of those payouts and deemed them beyond their law space. So there's a lot of problems. So what we feel is it's always best to go back, just do due diligence. They're not looking at the schools right now, but usually when they start doing one thing in one government entity, they usually shift to the next one and start there. It's really what I have to present tonight. I'm available to answer any questions anyone might have. But all in all, you're in good financial condition, and a lot of cleanup has been taking place to get yourselves financially ready in a good place.
Okay, it doesn't seem like anyone has any questions.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Valerie, so much for coming and giving the report for us. We really appreciate all of your work on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time working with the district.
Thank you, Valerie.
Have a
Thanks,
great
have a
evening,
great
everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Hey, can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Any discussion?
We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, second? Oh,
Second.
and all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Pepe, can you please read the reason for us going into executive session?
Absolutely. First, can you just clarify who the second was? I missed that.
I think it
Rich
was
Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin,
Thank you. Okay. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss a matter rendered confidential by federal or state law, student matters. Be it further resolved, the minutes of this closed session will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. This closed session will be followed by an open session where action will be taken.
Okay, can all board members please log out of Zoom and go on the separate link? Thank you.
I have a brief comment.
there's some items on, Hi. I just want to say that I'll be abstaining on some of these votes, and just to make it clear, it's not from any reason other than just still getting up to speed here. I don't think this will continue for too much longer, but certainly not for any reason other than to say that some of the dates of meetings that I wasn't on the board yet, some of it's financials from times I wasn't on the board yet. So there's obviously some things on here on the agenda that are pretty simple, gift card, for example, but I just, most of this, I'll be abstaining, and it's, I hope that no one will take it as not being, participating fully in the board's activities, but it's just something as I'm coming up to speed here. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments? I did want to recognize that today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which marks the 77th anniversary since the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp in 1945, which commemorates the victims of the Holocaust, which resulted in the killing of 6 billion of Europe's Jewish population. Any other comments from board members? Okay, we'll move on to superintendent's remarks.
Good evening, everyone. We have a few presentations this evening, but before we begin, I just want to give a brief COVID update. We're very pleased that the COVID numbers continue to decline statewide. The Cali report, which was issued this afternoon, places our region and much of the state back in the orange zone. As we continue tracking our 2-week totals of new cases on our dashboard on our website, we're encouraged to see the numbers go from 53 cases during the end of December to 40 during the first half of January to just 11 cases during the current 2-week cycle, which will end on Sunday. So that's great news, obviously, and as I've said before, it's only possible through everyone's cooperation. And we remain very grateful for the efforts of our school community. A special thanks to our teachers and our families. I also want to thank the Watchung IDEA and Target of Watchung for the generous donations that are listed on the agenda this evening. As for the presentations, we'll begin with the Start Strong results. And we're just going to pull up a brief 10-slide presentation for the public. That will be up momentarily. Here it comes. Okay. So we begin our presentations, each one with a copy of our vision statement on slide 2. Just reaffirming our commitment as a district to inspiring learners, our students and our adults, to explore and inquire and collaborate on their joyful journey toward discovery, independent thinking, and creative problem solving. We believe that our culture of acceptance and inclusion provides the foundation for learning and social emotional growth. We also believe deeply in the importance of reflection and ethical decision-making as we continue to learn and grow, embrace differences, and prepare for an increasingly complex, ever-changing world. And part of the importance of the SAFE Foundation is related to our culture of inquiry, because we want to encourage risk-taking, as we pointed out in our district goals, the importance of a growth mindset where we encourage learners to learn from mistakes, to take risks in the classroom and outside the classroom, in their co-curricular activities and in their own lives, and begin applying their learning in the classroom to the real world. That kind of authentic experience that we aspire to provide for our students. Now, just a word about Start Strong. I'm going to give you, in the next slide, you'll see just a brief outline to the three parts of this presentation. I'm going to give you a little context about Start Strong. Then we'll show you the results, and then talk a little bit about what we've done with the data. So we can move to the next slide. And I put together these slides based on information provided by the state. Now, perhaps everyone will remember last year we did not have the spring NJSLA, the standardized assessment for our students. And as part of the waiver process that the state had to get from the federal government, it was decided that the state would do something in the fall and provide some type of assessment. So they agreed that the state would provide sort of a mini assessment, a way to provide data that school districts could use for internal purposes of informing instruction and enhancing the learning process. They were designed to be administered quickly and efficiently in person, not like the NJSLA, which takes a significant amount of instructional time away from our teachers and students. We were allowed to administer this in the fall of 2021 pursuant to that agreement, but this spring coming up in 2022, we will return to the NJSLA. Now, with that being said, Start Strong is not intended to replace anything we're doing locally with our standards-based benchmark assessments. In our district, we use iReady, as you know. It's also not intended to replace the spring 2022 NJSLA. And it's not intended to predict how students will do on the NJSLA. It's also not intended to provide some form of comparison between districts or between grade levels or between different schools in a district. Next slide, please. So the state put together this assessment, and it was based on what they called a prioritized set of state learning standards. And we have the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, the NJSLS. And what they did was they prioritized a certain subset of those standards. And they also used the standards from the previous year. So, for example, here in grade 5, when the students were taking the English Language Arts assessment in early October, that assessment was aligned to the subset of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for grade 4, where the students would have been at the end of the year. So again, a tricky thing to do, and also a reason it makes it hard to align the data or try to predict it or compare it in any sense. They used release test questions from the NJSLA, and these were administered in periods of 45 to 60 minutes. So you can see it's really like we talk about state testing and high stakes testing being a snapshot. This is really the epitome of a snapshot of a moment in time of where students were on that particular day when they took this very brief assessment. Now, because of that narrow focus of the assessments and their intended use, they should not be compared to the NJSLA results or any Start Strong data at the state or local level. So I know I repeated that twice, but it's important, I think, for everyone to consider. On the next slide, we have the data for Bayberry. Now, these assessments were given in grades 4 through 8. So the only results we have for Bayberry are grade 4. And you'll see the different shades of purple here. The darker shade is the one that indicates 57% of the students who took the ELA assessment needed less support. So we're not getting grades. Students are not getting grades in any way. It's not like a number scale that goes up to 750 or something like that with the NJSLA, but it's just divided among 3 different categories to give students some feedback, to give teachers feedback of where the students are so that we can meet them where they are in their instruction. So 57% needed less support, 21%, I'm sorry, classes. they needed some support, and then 22% needed more support. You'll see a similar pattern in math, 51% and 24 and 25%. The next slide has data for Bayberry in the 4th grade, and here you'll see the numbers of students that made up those percentages. Okay, so 15, strong support may be needed, 14, some support, 36, less support may be needed. 38, excuse me. Okay, the next slide goes into Valley View results. And you'll see a similar graphic here. The ELA, 62% needed less support. In math, the numbers were a little lower, in 36 and 33%. And you'll see a larger section in the where students needed some support in the math. Again, the numbers for strong support relatively low. On the next slide, you will see again the numbers that break down those percentages. So you can see how many students. You look over to the right side, and you see for the ELA, it was over 150 students who needed less support. And then you have those smaller graphics below, which basically just breaks down the percentages again. These are reports that we were able to generate from the data that the state provided us. On the last slide, I just want to talk a little bit about the use of the data. And like I said at the beginning of the presentation, this data was intended for internal use, but we were also told afterwards that we must report the data as a larger set of data to share with the Board of Education. But you'll recall also for the families that we shared the individual Start Strong score reports when they became available from the state in December. And so we're using the Start Strong results. We're using our typical school-based formative and summative assessments in the classroom, whether that's a writing assignment or a unit test. We're gauging the daily performance of students in school, their participation, their active engagement. And we're using the iReady diagnostic data that we talked about a short time ago with the presentation, and we'll have another one coming up because we will be doing the second round of diagnostic data at the end of January, beginning next week, and do that for 2 weeks in early February. Teachers are communicating with families about student progress and interventions, whether it was through the Bayberry conferences or whether it's through email or phone or in-person meetings, and of course through report cards, and also through our Genesis database, which has the parent portal, which is available for parents to see student progress. And we encourage parents, if they have concerns, to reach out to our teachers. We also have our district-wide Pursuit of Excellence program that has been continued so that we can work on areas that have been identified as gaps, either in instruction or in learning, or just areas that are in need of reinforcement. So those are the kinds of things we're doing with this data. And again, it's a snapshot of where students were. It helps us identify how we can assist students individually. As we've talked about before, our iReady program has individualized learning paths that are used to help build skills, to reinforce skills, and to help students grow academically. So principals are welcome to offer any additional information, but perhaps I could just open it up to board members for any questions, and then either Principal Bickner or Principal Kidd could respond.
Thank you. If I may, so that number of 65 students in need of strong support over at Valley View, is it in math, is it safe to assume that most of those children are enrolled in the math workshop?
So those students would be receiving extra support, whether that is through an in-class support or an resource room or basic skills program, which is the math workshop, or the pursuit of excellence after school program. But that those types of supports are the ones that we put in place for kids that we know require it. So there's supports happening within the school day and outside of the school day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for your attention, everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Dakota. She has two presentations. First one on the English Language Learners 3-year plan and the HIB self-assessment report card. As usual, Ms. Dakota's wearing many hats.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. I didn't hear the end of that, but I will start with the English Language Learner 3-year plan. This plan will run from July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2024. Presenting it now in the middle of the first year is absolutely the timeline that the state has given to us. The bilingual education regulations require that school districts submit a 3-year plan outlining the programs and services they're providing for English language learners. That plan must include each of the following, which I'll share with you briefly tonight: the identification of students, the program description, the number of certified staff hired for the program, bilingual and ESL curriculum development, evaluation design, review process for exiting the program, and a budget for the bilingual and ESL program or English language services. The information that follows is what we will report on our ELL plan. So the first section talks about the district a little bit and is called the entity type. So we would be considered a traditional school district in the county of Somerset, with the district name Watchung Borough. The ESL contact would be listed as me, Nicole Dakota, the chief school administrator as Mr. Alexis, and the anticipated date of board approval of this plan would be tonight. The identification of English language learners begins at enrollment with the front office staff, the building principal, the classroom teachers, the bilingual ESL lead teacher, the bilingual ESL director, who are all responsible for overseeing the identification process. The home language survey is provided for parents to self-report and complete at home. It could be completed via an in-person interview or phone interview if needed. It is provided in English, but can also be translated into a home language if needed. The records review process is conducted by the general education teacher, the general education administrator or building principal, the bilingual ESL teacher and or lead teacher, and the bilingual ESL director. The district does not currently identify preschool students as English language learners. Pursuant to NJSA 18A7F 46, the District Board of Education shall provide all kindergarten through 12th grade English language learners enrolled in the district with all required courses and support to prepare them to meet the New Jersey student learning standards for high school graduation. A language instruction educational program must be identified for our district. That would be English as a second language. Procedures are in place for the selection of that program, and procedures are in place for placing students into an appropriate language instruction education program. The master schedules are reviewed in each school to ensure that all English language learners have access to the full curriculum, and all school-based extracurricular activities are open to our English language learners, including those directed at academics, sports, arts, and life skills. There is no bilingual parent advisory committee at this time, but based on our number of English language learners and type of language instructional education programs, that is not required by code. Our certified staff for the program. This is, again, just information, the way that it's asked and the way that it will be reported. Our district total student size falls in the 500 to 2,499 students. The district English language learner size falls in the 10 to 99 students. The total certified teachers in the district is 69. We have 0 who are certified as bilingual, bicultural, and we have 1 ESL certified teacher in the district that is serving the LIEPs. All certified teachers are not required to be sheltered English instruction trained, and less than 10% of our district teachers have completed training in that area. 100% of our district teachers have received training in socio-emotional and or culturally responsive teaching and learning. In the past 3 years, our ELL population has increased, and we have hired staff to match the growth trends in that area. Scheduling classes for English language learners is prioritized at the building level when creating schedules, and there is opportunities for common planning time for general education and bilingual ESL teachers. English language learners must be provided equitable educational opportunities. School districts are required to implement LIEPs that assist ELLs in achieving English language proficiency while learning the challenging content state standards. The next section gives a list of all of the LIEP options: full-time bilingual, dual language, bilingual part-time, bilingual resource, bilingual tutorial, high-intensity ESL, sheltered English instruction, English as a second language, and English language services. The next set of information is primarily on graduation, and we will report a 00, which is the code that the state gives to school districts that do not have a high school and report high school graduation rates. There is a process for developing the ESL bilingual curriculum that is aligned to the WIDA English language development standards. The district reviewed eligibility criteria for participation in advanced courses to ensure equitable access for ELs. And the district does not participate in the New Jersey State Seal of Biliteracy. In evaluating the program design, district teams must ensure that LIEPs are effective and appropriate. A number of assessments and measures are used to evaluate the effectiveness of the LIEP, which include class grades, formative assessments, summative assessments, WIDA assessments, such as the Access for ELs, the alternate access, the model, or the screener, the NJSLA, English Language Arts and Math Performance Data, and the Start Strong assessments. The district has evaluated the LIEPs and modified the LIEP in response to that available data. The district will report did not meet the N size of 20 for the questions about academic achievement indicators and progress indicators because of the number of students in our district that are English language learners. The district will report that in grades 1 to 3, 4 to 5, and 6 to 8, ELs need additional support in reading, writing, speaking, and listening domains. And the WIDA access for ELs results are shared with the general education teachers. This is the average English language proficiency level from the last access for L's administration, which was the spring of 2021. The access was not one of the assessments that was not given last spring. In kindergarten, we had no students that took it, so we don't have a report for that. In grades 1 to 3, the average English language proficiency level was between a 3.0 and 3.9. In grades 4 and 5, it was between a 2.0 and 2.9. And then in 6 to 8 and 9 to 12, we have no data to report. So additional supports are required based on the performance data for English language learners currently in grades 1 to 3, 4 to 5, and 6 to 8. There is a process for exiting English language learner programs and services. So students must demonstrate readiness to exit based on the English language proficiency assessment, which measures the language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and multiple criteria. Former English language learners must be monitored for 2 years after they exit L status to evaluate their academic progress. The average amount of time the district L's remain in the LIEP is three to 4 years. 1 student has exited in the past 3 years. 0 students were re-identified as an L within 2 years due to lack of progress in English classes, and 100% of former Ls met the ELA achievement, math achievement, and chronic absenteeism indicators. The district must use state and federal funds to support Ls. The federal funds supplement the state funds. The district uses state funds to support salaries of teachers, other salaries for instruction, purchased professional educational services, purchased technical services, other purchased services, general supplies, other instructional program supplies, other instructional program materials, other instructional program purchase services. The status of our federal Title III allocation for the previous year was that funds were accepted and a consortium was joined. No allocation was received in the last fiscal year for Title III immigrant allocation, and the district does not typically carry over funds to support Ls. The other piece of information I need to share tonight is the New Jersey Department of Education school self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. This self-assessment was completed by Bayberry School and Valley View School for the time period July 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. There are 8 core elements that the state includes in that self-assessment. So core element number 1, HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives. The school has annually established HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives, implemented and documented HIB programs, approaches, or initiatives, and assessed those HIB programs, approaches, or initiatives. These programs, approaches, and initiatives were designed to create school-wide conditions to prevent and address harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The school safety, school climate team identified patterns of HIB and reviewed school climate and school policies for the prevention of HIB. Core element 2, training on the Board of Ed approved HIB policy and procedures. The school employees, contracted service providers, and volunteers were provided training on the HIB policy. The policy training included instruction on preventing HIB on the basis of protected categories enumerated in the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights and other distinguished characteristics that may incite incidents of discrimination or HIB. The HIB policy was discussed with students in accordance with the district's process for these discussions. Core element 3, other staff instruction and training programs. Each staff Each teaching staff member completed at least 2 hours of instruction in suicide prevention that included information on HIB in each 5-year professional development period. Each teaching staff member completed at least 2 hours of instruction on HIB prevention in each 5-year professional development period. The school anti-bullying specialist was given time during the usual school schedule to participate in in-service training in preparation to act as the ABS. The members of the school safety, school climate team were provided with professional development in effective practices of successful school climate programs or approaches, and school building leaders have received information on the prevention of harassment, intimidation, and bullying as part of their training on issues of school ethics, school law, and school governance. Core element 4, the curriculum and instruction on HIB and related information and skills. The school provided ongoing age-appropriate instruction on preventing HIB in accordance with New Jersey student learning standards. The school observed the Week of Respect during the week beginning with the first Monday in October of each year, recognizing the importance of character education by providing age-appropriate instruction focusing on HIB prevention. Core element 5, HIB personnel. The principal appointed a school anti-bullying specialist. The anti-bullying specialist met at least 2 times per school year with the district anti-bullying coordinator. The school safety, school climate team met at least 2 times per school year to develop, foster, and maintain a positive school climate by focusing on the ongoing systemic process and practices in the school and to address school climate issues, including HIB. Core element 6, school level HIB incident reporting procedures. Core element 6 and 7 have an or in them. The difference would be if a report of HIB was made in that school year. They would meet one part of it and not the other. The school implemented the district's procedure for reporting HIB that included all required elements, or the school has a process for ensuring that staff are implementing the district's procedure for reporting HIB that includes all required elements. The school implemented the district's procedure for reporting new information on a prior HIB report, or the school fosters a positive school climate that encourages reports of all concerning behaviors, including HIB, and implements effective prevention strategies which result in no incidents of HIB. Core element 7, HIB investigation procedure. The school followed the Board of Ed approved policy on HIB investigation procedures, which provided for notification to parents of alleged offenders and alleged victims in each reported HIB incident, or responsible staff are knowledgeable about the process to notify parents of alleged offenders and alleged victims in each reported HIB incident and how to implement the process. Completion of the investigation within 10 school days of the written incident report, or the school has a process in place to ensure completion of each investigation within 10 school days of the written incident report. Preparation of a written report on the findings of each HIB investigation, or the school has a process in place to prepare a written report on the findings of each HIB investigation. Results of the investigation reported to the chief school administrator within 2 school days of completion of the investigation, or the school has a procedure for reporting the results of each investigation to the chief school administrator within 2 days of completion of the investigation. And core element 8, HIB reporting. The school has a procedure for ensuring that staff member reports include the required information for all incidents of violence, vandalism, and HIB. The school, the official grades received from NJDOE for the self-assessment from the previous reporting period for the school and for the school district are posted on the homepage of the school's website per the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights and the requirements of the New Jersey DOE. And in conclusion, the self-assessment for Bayberry and Valley View schools, each of those core element indicators on the self-assessment was rated for each school based on the criteria established by the Department of Ed to determine the school's self-assessment scores for the 2020-2021 school year. Each school scored 71 out of 78 possible points. The official grades received from the New Jersey Department of Ed from the previous reporting period are posted on the school websites, and the results will be used to guide the work of the anti-bullying specialists and the school safety, school climate teams in the areas of programs, training, and reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Toda.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Board members? Okay, next we have the principal's reports, and I understand we have our student council representatives waiting patiently on Zoom to deliver this month's reports. Emily's going first.
Hi. So the Bayberry principal report is the Bayberry Championship Spelling Bee was held on January 20th. Congratulations to our winner, fourth grader Alec Choweski. We are so proud of all of our students that competed and would also like to congratulate our class finalists on a job well done. Third grade finalists Devin Chatu, Julian Larson, Ethan Lee, and fourth grade finalists Rohan Patel and Allison Park. In honor of Martin Luther King Jr., Bayberry held their very own Day of Service on January 21st. Students and staff worked together to be helpful to the school community by shelving library books, collecting garbage and recycling, cleaning tables and desks, and creating bookmarks for the library, helping younger students create a craft, creating positive posters of encouragement, and creating and delivering notes of gratitude to staff. It was a great day of service. We launched the Pickup Patrol this week, a new online system to manage Bayberry dismissal. Parents received their welcome email on Monday to set up their account that allows them to enter default dismissal plans as well as daily plan changes for their child. Pickup Patrol automatically notifies the office and classroom teachers of a student's dismissal plan, ensuring a safe and efficient dismissal. Parents and guardians are reminded to set up their Pickup Patrol account by Monday, January 31st. After-school clubs are in full swing and students are participating in sports, arts and crafts, games, robotics, coding, and reading. In addition, our Bayberry's Pursuit of Excellence started this week before school, with students working hard with their teacher on reading and math skills. Finally, we would like to welcome Karen Doss, our new school nurse who started this month.
Thank you, Emily. Chelsea's next.
I wasn't even, I thought I was supposed to do the Bayberry report. I don't have the value report.
Hold on one second, Chelsea. Chelsea, can you check your email? It should be in there from Principal Kidd.
Okay.
Take your time.
While we wait, I just have one announcement for the recording. I believe the video recording did not start when we came back from closed sessions. I just want to put into the record that Mrs. Scharf made the motion to re-enter into public session. It was seconded by Mr. Barbella and passed on a voice vote.
Chelsea, I'm going to try to forward it to you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, there should be another email just sharing it in the Google Drive. Sorry about all this delay. We'd like Chelsea to have the opportunity, after waiting patiently, to share this report.
You said it should be in Google Drive?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll have it. Valley View's principal report for January 2022. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chelsea Jenkins, and I am Valley View's Student Council President. I'm happy to present the Valley View's principal report for the month of January. Valley View has held our school-wide spelling bee on January 13th. We had 17 participants in the Valley View Spelling Bee this year. After 40 rounds, Aisha Gawandi, grade 6, was named our school champion. She will represent Valley View at the 6th annual SCLSNJ Spelling Bee Spectacular on March 5th, 2022. Our second place winner was Jude Esquiano, grade 5, and our third place winner was Leila Castillo, grade 5. Congratulations to all of our spelling bee participants. Our students celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday during the month of January. Students at Valley View read about his life and discussed the impact of his words and actions. The Community Outreach Club has scheduled storytime sessions. Our first two sessions with Ryan and Mrs. Stacks were a great treat. Valley students read a book as a club over Google Meet to our first graders. The first graders shared favorite parts of the book. We look forward to scheduling more time with our friends at Bayberry. 8th grade parents were invited to Watchung Hills Regional High School on Tuesday, January 20th. Presentations were given by the Guidance Department, Administration, and Content Area Supervisors. A record of the presentation is available on Watchung Hills Regional High School website under 8th grade events. Looking ahead, the Valley View Community Outreach Club would like to bring together the families of Watchung in a new and tasty way through traditional family recipes. Submitted recipes will be put together into a Watchung Community Outreach Cookbook available for purchase this spring. If your family would like to participate, please follow the link sent out in the community e-blast. We look forward to sharing our culinary view of Watchung. Please note that all recipes are due by February 11th. Our Coding and Robotics Club is preparing for a statewide competition called Teams on February 12th. The competition consists of 3 components: design and build a solution to an engineer challenge, use math and science skills to solve real-world engineering challenges, research and write an in-depth essay on an assigned topic, which is submitted electronically prior to the competition date. I'm sure it will be a challenging and exciting day. The Valley View Winter Concert was rescheduled for February 2nd at 7 p.m. The event will be live streamed from the Watchung Regional Hills High School Performing Arts Center, and the link will be posted on the Valley View website under headlines. As a friendly reminder, non-perishable food donations for the food bank are still being accepted. For a full list of items, please go to somersetfoodbank.org. Also, iReady winter diagnostic testing begins on Monday. Please make sure your child has earbuds and a charge compact in his or her backpack. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you very much, Chelsea and Emily. We appreciate it. Well done. I can say from firsthand experience, and so can Principal Fickner, that the community outreach clubs plan that they executed was wonderful. Having story time with Bayberry sessions, you could tell the Bayberry kids really loved having the older kids read to them, and they really enjoyed the stories that were selected. We're also very excited about the having the winter concert at the high school on February 2nd. We look forward to that. Thank you again. And then just the last thing is I need to, the second to last thing is I need to just mention the biannual student safety data system report. We're very fortunate, trust me, to have only 2 minor conduct incidents at Valley View to report for this designated period. The enrollment report stands at 636, which is 20 more than at the start of the school year. And that'll do it for this section. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and your patience.
We're going to move on to committee reports. Kevin, can you please give the Human Resources Committee report?
Yes, thanks, Dory. The committee met Thursday, January 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. We met remotely. The first topic we discussed were guidance hours at Bayberry. We discussed the current limitations of the part-time counseling hours at Bayberry, which are currently Monday and Wednesday, 8:30 to 2:30, Friday, 8:30 to 2. We considered alternatives, and we thought that it best to revisit the topic again in the context of the budget development for next year. We also discussed current substitute pay rate. Some districts in the area have raised their pay to $120 or $125 per day, but most are still in slightly lower range where we are, 100 to 105. We're at 100. Some districts are still in the 90s, so we'll continue to monitor this and consult with the districts that have raised their pay to see whether it's improving their fill rates. On the agenda today, we have approval for an unpaid leave of absence, and we're also pleased to recommend a new substitute who we have on the agenda today as well. That's it for the HR and Personnel Committee. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Rich, can you please give the Operations/Finance Committee report?
Will do, Dory. The Operations Finance Committee met on January 19th. The first order of business was to discuss the referendum and how to gain support for the referendum for another referendum after the first referendum was unsuccessful. The committee was in favor of creating an ad hoc committee to include various community stakeholders in the referendum planning process. And we were also in favor of hiring an independent engineer with expertise in HVAC to obtain an alternate expert recommendation for identifying and addressing the district's needs. Committee also discussed additional options for community engagement, including surveys, town hall meetings, and mailers. Based upon input from additional experts and feedback from the ad hoc committee and other board members, the Operations Finance Committee will revisit the projects list to review the scope of work and cost estimates and make recommendations to the full board for changes if deemed appropriate. Mr. Pepe asked the committee for feedback on the idea of hiring DRG to conduct a kitchen study to determine what it would take to be able to provide food services at each building. The committee was in favor of hiring DRG to do the study. We discussed briefly the full year 21 audit, which I thought was beautifully presented by our auditor in plain language. So I thank her for that. Mr. Pepe also, with respect to the FY23 budget, asked the committee for input on budget goals for the 2022-2023 school budget. He explained that in addition to seeking to maintain staffing levels and looking for affordable ways to enhance instruction, he was also working with the buildings and grounds supervisor to identify any referendum projects that will need to be completed before the board has an opportunity to bring new referendum to the voters. So two things on this. I think it's incumbent on the entire board, or I would like to invite the entire board to give their suggestions for what should be in the 23 budget, and either email them to me or Mr. Pepe for our next meeting, which is on February 3rd. I think that as an operations committee and finance committee, we have a much narrower view than the whole entire board on what we need to do as far as budgeting for the next school year. And also, obviously, since the referendum did not pass, we should try to keep to a minimum any referendum projects that need to be completed before the board has the opportunity to bring a new referendum to the voters, because at that point we're costing the taxpayers 100% of any of those expenses, instead of roughly 2/3 that we would have paid, with a third coming from the state. So that's not a very good economic model, and we would like to avail ourselves of state funding if we can get a referendum passed. Otherwise, taxpayers of Watchung are paying 100% of everything from now on. Then lastly, Mr. Pepe informed the committee that the district had been selected for federal consolidated monitoring. He explained that this process is similar to a federal grants audit, except it takes place during the grant year rather than after the close of the grant year. And I think the auditor explained this. The monitors will review our current grants and provide feedback regarding our compliance with grant regulations and allowable expenditures. We did also have another operations committee meeting today that included members of the town council and the town's business administrator, and also the mayor. And the subject was the bridge at Phillips Field and applying for a FEMA grant in order to get federal aid, approximately 75%, if successful, for repairing the damage that was caused during Ida. I guess we'll have a more fulsome report on that meeting next time. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Adam, do you want to give the curriculum committee report, or do you want me to do it?
Yep, I can do it.
Okay, go.
Thanks. Our last meeting was on Thursday, January 20th, where we got a preview of tonight's Start Strong results presentation. We discussed the 2022-2023 calendar. Mr. Alexis proposed three different options, and the committee was in favor of adding an extra professional development day, but wanted to think more about the decision on the religious holidays. Also, the administration's meeting with the Teachers Association next week regarding the proposed calendars. So we're going to revisit that issue at the next curriculum meeting. And then we will give a recommendation to the full board at our next board meeting. The committee was in favor of homework-free zones, which would include holiday breaks on the calendar, individual holidays identified in the survey, and possibly long weekends, during which teachers would not administer assessments or assign homework on those days or the day returning from a holiday or break. The administration will get input from teachers and draft some guidelines for us. For the current year, we've used 5 emergency closing days, and we only have 3 built into the calendar. So the Friday before Memorial Day weekend will now be a day of school, as will Friday, April 22nd, which is the last day of spring break. We discussed challenges of possibly altering the current year calendar and ultimately recommended that the calendar remain the same. Further snow days or emergency closings will be made up during spring break, beginning with the Thursday, April 21st, and moving backwards. We discussed remote instruction for quarantine students. The administration reviewed the current practice of initiating remote synchronous instruction only when a student is directed to quarantine by the school nurse for COVID purposes. Those students are marked present with a special code for remote participation. The schools have been flexible when remote instruction already exists in a class, allowing absent students to join a Google Meet, but those students are still marked absent. The state has made it clear that we are not allowed to offer remote instruction for reasons other than COVID-related quarantines or staff shortages. We were informed of the mid-year diagnostics. The iReady diagnostics will be administered during a window of January 31st through February 11th, and the assessments generally take 45 to 60 minutes per subject. The Valley View concert was moved tentatively to February 2nd. If we can't hold it at the high school because of lingering COVID concerns, then we'll record it in the APR. Cautiously optimistic that we can go forward at the high school on the 2nd. And then special services update. Mr. Toda discussed the ELL 3-year plan a bit. So we heard an overview of the plan and its purpose. Mr. Toda also responded to questions regarding the continuity of support by the in-class aides caused by statewide and national shortages of candidates, as well as ongoing resignations from the agencies that provide our aides. She explained the ongoing efforts to recruit and retain additional staff, which includes adding a number of agencies from which to pull candidates from. So we're hopeful that we will have less of an issue going forward. And then as for the FISERV STEM enrichment program that is slated to start in September, there's another meeting scheduled with the FISERV team as well as the Berkeley Heights team for Friday the 4th, and we'll continue to update you. Right now, there's just no update. And that's it.
Thank you, Adam. Joe, can you please give the policy committee report?
Sure. There were no new policies or regulations for this month, so the meeting was canceled this month.
Thank you. Kevin, can you please give us any updates as the legislative liaison?
Yes, Dory. Just one brief update. The legislature recently passed and the governor signed into law S3685, which in certain circumstances permits retired teachers to return to the classroom while collecting a pension. We actually briefly discussed this in the HR committee, and we thought that this would perhaps be limited to some very specific circumstances, but it's something to keep in mind. That's a useful tool to have for the future. That's all I have. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. Jen, any update from Somerset County Ed Services Commission? Amber, any update from Somerset County School Boards Association?
School Board Association met on January 20th, and the topic of discussion was the board's role in curriculum. They talked about just what is curriculum, what are the standards, 12 questions that Board of Ed members should ask, what must be approved, and they went on policy and professional development.
Thank you, Amber.
Report. Thank you.
I think Amber froze there.
Oh, I'm sorry, you froze. That's why. I don't know if we caught the last part.
That's the that's what I guess they have a PowerPoint. I can send that to everyone else if they like, but so the board's role in curriculum, and I think it'll be a great resource for everyone as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Amber.
Okay, and I'll give the New Jersey School Boards Association update. New Jersey state law requires school board members and charter school trustees to attend training in the first, second, and third years of a first year term and second and third years of a first year term and in the first year of a re-elected or reappointed term. NJSBA is the state designated provider of mandated training. Our business administrator has sent emails to all board members asking them to inform him when they can attend the mandated training. If you haven't reached out to him, I ask that you please do so for him to register you for your training. The following mandated training programs are required: Governance 1, new board members, new board member orientation conference; Governance 2, first term, second year of service finance; Governance 3, first term, third full year of service student achievement; and Governance 4 for re-elected/reappointed board members in the first year of any succeeding term legal update. Please make sure you check your email and password before the mandated training session to ensure you can log in if you are attending your training virtually. As a reminder, we will have our yearly ethics training and CSA evaluation training during the March board meeting. In case any board member is interested in attending, some upcoming sessions offered by the NJSBA are as follows. Somerset County School Board Association hybrid meeting celebrations is on Thursday, May 12th, between 6 and 9 at the Somerset County Votech High School. The NJSBA's virtual workshop from 2021 is still available on demand until tomorrow on their website, so you can watch it at your convenience. And some upcoming webinars are It All Begins with an Asset Mindset, Wednesday, February 2nd at 11 a.m. Cyber Threats to K-12, Complete Protection is Possible, Thursday, February 10th at 1 p.m. There are recent online events that are still available for you to review. Personnel issues during the pandemic, Facebook Live event, NJSBA iSTEAM and Sustainable Lessons, payments fraud, and your vendor master, the origin of the risk. You can also find information on the NJSBA website if any board member participates in the Board Member Academy. You can begin individual certification and board certification programs. All board members can find upcoming meetings, podcasts, webinars, and Facebook Live events on the NJSBA website, mainly under the Training tab. The NJSBA provides news and publications, conducts research, and offers resources to help board members, parents, and the general public advocate for our schools. Please check out the news and information tab on their website.
Dory, can I add one thing about the school board's training?
Sure, go ahead.
Just wanted to remind, I think we sent an email out. Because last year, the Governance 1 training, which traditionally is a weekend-long event, last year they couldn't do that because of COVID. So they are offering a live version of that training to anyone who took the online version last year. So if you took Governance 1 last year, you can sign up for both Governance 2 and also the live, the in-person Governance 1 this year, just to remind you.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, now we're going to move to community engagement for the PTO. Mrs. Roberto Ferrara, is there any update with the PTO?
Good evening, everyone. Since our last report, we have met and we approved the $900 for the chess club for Bayberry. Currently, the PTO is working on various events, which include food sales, third ordering session for March through April. That will open up on February 1st, ongoing to the 15th. That'll be contingent on having enough food, lunch volunteers. We have our spirit wear that's constantly changing their designs. The yearbook for Bayberries are for sale. Our school store, Bayberry code is 160137. Valley View is 160138. We have our birthday signs still going on. Amazon Smiles. We're looking for library volunteers. And we have our 8th grade committee fundraisers, which is known as the Sip to End Shop at 688 Boutique from February 10th from 5 to 8. We want to thank all of our parent volunteers for all the time that they're helping our children in our schools. And being that we're always looking for volunteers, please visit our website at www.watchungpto.com. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, February 15th at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a WEF update, Mrs. Kokiata, or anyone from WEF available to give an update? Okay, a CPAG update. Ms. Newsome, is there a CPAG update or anyone on from CPAG? Okay, we're going to move into comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Comments submitted to the board secretary prior to the meeting will be read first. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. The names of students should not be used. Mr. Pepe, will you please read the statement to the recording of this meeting?
Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public.
Okay, seeing no comments, we're going to move on to action items. Anthony, can you please move administrative items? Hold on 1 second.
Thank you. Make a motion to move administrative items A1 through A4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella? Mr. Buccarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
I abstain.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes to 1 through 3 and abstain from 4 as I wasn't able to attend the meeting.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes.
Ms. Advani? I heard you here, but I didn't hear you on the microphone. Is your microphone on?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mrs. Sharp,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
motion's passed.
Kevin, can you please move personnel items?
Yes, I move personnel items. B1, approve unpaid leave of absence. B2, appointment of certified tenured staff revised. And B3, appoint district substitutes revised.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buckarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
I abstain.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharp,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
motion's passed.
Rich, can you please move operation items?
Yes, I move C1, approve payment of bills, C2, approve transfer of funds, C3, accept financial reports, C4, accept audit and corrective action plan for the 2021 school year, C5, accept gift card donation from Target of Watchung, C6, appropriate revised state aid, C7, approve service providers, and C8, approve professional travel and related expenses. C9, accept donation of books from Watchung IDEA.
I believe there's a C10. Did they?
Yeah, there's a C10 authorized waiver of requirements, special education. Medicaid.
Got it.
Sorry, that was added last minute.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I have a quick question. Rich, you had mentioned DRG for the kitchen assessment. Is that on the agenda?
Do you want me to respond to that?
Sure.
Okay, it's not on the agenda. We actually didn't need board approval for that. I just brought it to the operations because I wanted them to know that we were looking into this based on prior feedback from a public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buckarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Abstain.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharp,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Adam, can you please move curriculum items?
Yep, and move D1, approve New Jersey Department of Education English Language Learner 3-year plan for school years 21 to 24. D2, approve Valley View virtual field trip. And D3, approve Valley View winter music concert at the high school.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buckarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Abstain.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharp,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Okay, we have nothing under policy, so we'll move to board business. We have under here, create an ad hoc referendum committee. So I'm opening that up for discussion. Since this was at the request of the operations committee, maybe they'd like to start off the discussion on this.
Anthony, you want to take this one?
Sure. Thanks, Rick. I think that an ad hoc committee would be very helpful to get involved early in the process of coming up with some ideas for the referendum. And there's a variety of ways I think it could benefit the effort. We'll be able to invite the public to participate. And so take advantage of the expertise that's in town. I think that there's people that will have some very good input, could save us, save the district quite a bit of money, and hopefully improve the result. So I think that there's people that will like to be a little bit more involved than maybe a open house or one night event such as that, or a survey might allow for. So you'll have that level of participation where they can be a little bit more ongoing in offering and following up on ideas. So I think it's a benefit that is worth opening up as soon as possible.
Is there any other specific information about forming this committee?
Well, I think we are going to discuss that at our next operations committee meeting, which is next week, and we'll put parameters on it. There was discussion, it should be limited to, not a huge amount of participants, that it should be limited in time so that we're not studying the issues for an extended period. So I think that the idea is to get the most out of it that we can in a reasonable period of time, and then move on with it, whatever recommendations we have, and then education of the public. Did I miss anything, Joe or Anthony or Adam?
I just think we discussed that there's not a specific number, that there needs to be a cap or a limit to that. If there is a tremendous turnout early on, and some of the early meetings are more of listening sessions and seeing how some of these ideas are coming forward, then I think the more the merrier. But I guess we'll see who's interested in being part of the committee over time. And we do have some time constraints just on the calendar, that certain milestones need to be met to move forward for the next referendum. But I think the input can continue coming forward all the way through. So I just would hesitate to say that there's a hard limit on the number of participants, or really that it has to be a complete endpoint at an early stage. It's just there are certain milestones that do have to be met to reintroduce a referendum at a certain date.
The only thing I'd add as part of that discussion is the board overall, and Mr. Alexis does have experience in setting up ad hoc committees, so in the past under different venues. So we're happy to take that input if it helps produce the structure. Certainly, as Anthony mentioned, we want participation and input. However, we also want it to be manageable. We do want some consistency in the participation as we open it up to the public, because we will need some finality in terms of the input from the ad hoc committee, as alluded to by Anthony, in order to work backwards from when we would have a next referendum. We need to establish a milestone plan, establish that community engagement timelines for the other things we're going to do, continue to work with the engineers and other experts for purposes of estimates, and then put together new plans and new proposals. So there's critical links in that chain, and we want to stay on track in terms of using reasonable timelines to put the referendum back up for the public to vote and not take too long going into next year, if at all possible.
I definitely support the ad hoc, but I definitely would like to see that it be a manageable and productive process, and that there was participation from the community. I would love to hear why people voted no. I would love to hear why people voted yes. I would love to hear why people maybe didn't vote at all. But for me, living here now almost 20 years, I would really like to have the participation and have the engagement with the community. I mean, we currently have one community member sitting here with us now, and I think we're at 31 on the Zoom with us, and I think about half of those are staff members. So I would absolutely love to have engagement with the community.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion then to create a ad hoc in the purposes of community engagement for the referendum. So is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to create an ad hoc referendum committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharp,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, I would also like to make a motion to introduce a resolution in recognition of Superintendent George Alexis and in disapproval of Board Member Amber Murad. Whereas disparaging and offensive comments were made by Board Member Amber Murad during a recent Board of Education meeting regarding the administration's handling of COVID-19 protocols. And whereas the remainder of the board members completely disavow the comments that were made by Mrs. Murad and deplore her unfair and untrue characterization of how our superintendent has addressed the pandemic and communicated with our parents. And whereas Mrs. Murad has refused to apologize for having made these unwarranted comments at a public meeting, whereas contrary to these comments, the board fully supports the superintendent and appreciates the leadership he has shown in guiding the district through the many challenges posed by the pandemic, not the least of which have been keeping on top of, understanding, and implementing the ever-changing rules, guidelines, and recommendations provided by the CDC, the Department of Education, and the Department of Health. And whereas the superintendent has steadfastly pursued the goal of safeguarding our students, teachers, and other staff while on school grounds, and has communicated all information to parents, students, and staff clearly, honestly, and transparently. Now therefore be it resolved, the board has full confidence in Mr. Alexis and hereby expresses appreciation for his service and commitment to our students and their families during these uncertain and trying times. Be it further resolved that the board does not in any way condone Mrs. Murad's statements and hereby censures her for her actions in this regard. Is there a second? Second. So to start off the discussion, I would just like to start by saying that as a parent, teacher, and a board member, it has been extremely confusing and frustrating at times when understanding the guidance given to the public by the CDC, the NJDOE, and the local health officials when dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Participating on the restart ad hoc with Rich, Jen, and Mr. Alexis, it really gave me insight as to how difficult it was and continues to be for schools to provide communities, staff, students, and parents with what is recommended. In addition to it constantly changing, I want to personally thank Mr. Alexis and the rest of the administration for all their efforts in keeping the students and staff safe during this time. This has been and continues to be such a difficult time, but they're doing a great job in trying to make sure the students and staff are safe and the community is informed. I understand that today Mrs. Murad apologized to Mr. Alexis and Mr. Pepe privately and want to thank her for that, but her comments were made in public, so as a public apology is warranted in this situation.
In hindsight, gaslighting was a charged word, but I stand by my opinion, and I had a very productive conversation today with Superintendent Alexis and Rich Pepe. And I just echoed as a parent what the public comments have been, in my opinion, in a public session, and just requesting clear guidelines. As a parent, my comments were to advocate for students and parents of Watchung. We are in this together. So when I started my comment, it was that, they've done a great job. However, like I said, we are in this together, and I'm grateful to the teachers that are staying up until midnight to update Google Classrooms because they have children who are learning virtually. I'm thankful to Nurse Julie, who has always worked with parents. I'm thankful to Administrator Rich Pepe, Superintendent George Alexis, Principal Kidd, Principal Fickner, and all of our staff members for doing everything they have done throughout the difficult and trying times. But by passing this resolution, are you censuring me? Asking us as board members to never have a voice as a parent? If yes, you're taking away my right to speak. We speak in public forums and in public comment to address any concerns we might have as a parent. But are you taking this right away from us by passing this resolution? Is a question I have for you, President Harvey.
So the difference in what you did is that you're a board member, Mrs. Murad. And according to our board attorney, which was a consultant on this matter, you are not supposed to make evaluative comments of personnel in public session, and you violated that.
Then this is not the forum to discuss it. I think this is a personnel matter and it should be moved or in a future executive session, if that's the case. I mean, I feel misled by the oscillating structure of our board. And this is why I spoke up when I did. I've inherited a structure that I was in no part of implementing, where I cannot even sit down or speak or any of that with the superintendent or anyone without you or Jen being present. And if anything, if it's even an email, it has to be CC'd. And like I said, I was not a part of that. So that is why.
Murad, that has been part of a board process way before even we were board members. And if you please take the time to consult with the New Jersey School Board Association representative, Gwen Thornton. She would be able to express that to you as well.
And I did. And as an elected official, I can. Because we all have the same rights. You presiding over a board as a president is different, but you don't have the authority to tell anyone what to do. But all right, you can move on to voting. It's fine. With no
Is
further,
there any other discussion?
I just fully support everything you said, Dory. I thought it was pointed and accurate, and I've been impressed with our administration and our staff throughout this pandemic. It is extremely confusing at times and is extremely frustrating and difficult, but I've always seen plenty of communication. Things are posted clearly on the website. So I'm fully in support of this resolution.
Well, certainly from a board process standpoint, this is horrendous, I would think. To actually bring up board process when you've just violated some of the most basic concepts of board. It's in the most basic manual. Surprises on the table. I would like to know who else has seen this resolution that's being put forward.
This wasn't a surprise. Mrs. Murad was emailed in advance to inform her that a resolution would be brought to the board meeting if a public apology was not made to the superintendent. And again, Mr. Ingracia, board counsel was consulted on this, and this is the recommendation of the Watchung Board of Education attorney, which is here to protect the school district and the board.
Well, I find that bad advice, quite frankly, and I find it not on the agenda, for one. Are you actually?
Things don't have to be on the agenda for them to be introduced. This is board business, and I made a motion.
All right, and you
That's
read,
part of the Roberts rules.
and you read a multi-page resolution. And I'm asking who else has had the chance to see that resolution before voting on it?
Myself and Mrs. Sharp, who was consulted by the attorney on this
And
matter.
spent a good part of our time speaking with our board attorney about this subject and
All right,
took
and
her
so-
advice.
And so nothing was distributed to the rest of the board for their review before being asked to pass a resolution?
No, that wasn't necessary to do, Mr. Ingracia.
All right, well, I would.
I
just-
read the resolution to you. Would you like me to read it again?
I would certainly not want to hear that again because I think that it was very poorly written. I think that I would just ask my fellow board members who haven't been privy to this resolution to do some real reflection and real soul searching before casting a vote on this resolution. I think that to have it read without having the board be able to see it and have some time to reflect on it, and it is very badly done, very poor leadership. I bring back the point that I made at the last meeting about team players and accepting of diverse viewpoints, and that's certainly not present in this action.
Mr. Ingracia, I'm all for diverse viewpoints, but I'm also for being a Board of Education member and making sure that we follow the rules and do what we're supposed to as far as Mr. Alexis goes.
Well,
I think
I
the key
don't,
to
I
the,
don't
re-
think you were listening
the key to the
what was said
resolution
last
is,
week and
right.
what
Yes,
was then just
And
said.
I think that the original statement was twisted after Amber spoke, that it was twisted into something that she did not convey. It was, and even if you want to read a dictionary definition of a term,
I
the-
actually never commented on the term. I don't use the term and I don't care to discuss it, but I clearly heard what she said. And I will just reiterate what I said at our last meeting. As a board member, my own personal beliefs, you don't get to then get up out of this chair and go and make a statement and blow the doors off of the administration. It's just, it's not something that should be done. And it actually put us in a very bad position as a board that you are now part of.
Right, we are advised that we are not to make any evaluative comments about personnel in public session, and that took place, and that leaves us open to legal liability. And this is the advice of our board attorney, which this was actually crafted by our board attorney. So I'm not sure where the disconnect is there. We are not allowed to do what Mrs. Murad did in public session. And that leaves us open to a lawsuit. Do you understand that, Mr. Ingracia?
Well, I disagree with your characterization.
You can
what Ms.
disagree,
Murad
but you
said.
are not our board
Perfectly
counsel.
fine, but we listen to our board counsel. That's why we retain one and listen to them.
Selectively, I might add, very selectively, I might add.
Can we move on? Because
I have a
this is
question,
just going
Dory.
down the rabbit.
Did
Yes,
anybody
Ed.
ask the board attorney to be here today?
We
That might have
did.
been helpful.
Yes, we did. She wasn't available to be here this evening, but we did ask her to attend this evening.
Thank you.
So a board member shared an opinion, possibly formed through parents coming to her with their concerns. And like I said before I was interrupted, a definition was read, which the result was confusion, that can lead to confusion. And so I think that was really at the crux of what Amber was saying, that when there's confusion, you don't want to have it be so that the person who's saying that they're confused is at fault. And that's the only way I took that original statement. But it was amplified by other board members after Amber's statement. But like I said, I think that anyone who hasn't had a chance to read that and reflect on that should really think long and hard before you would vote yes on that. It's something that was apparently 2 people out of this board had a chance to read it. And that's, to put something forward that basically you're telling a board member that we're going to condemn you for speaking about concerns that are maybe in the community, and then you're going to have a chilling effect on the public, I think, also when you do that. So I just would, I obviously am not in favor, and I think that anyone who hasn't had a chance to see it is being very unfair if they would just vote yes on something that they haven't even read after having it sprung on the board table like it has been. Thank you.
So I clearly am in favor, and I disagree, and I'm allowed to disagree with you, Anthony, and we can all have our own opinions, and that's fair. And I think it was pretty clear. I think it was actually more than clear as to what Dory read. I listened, I digested what she said. It was 2 pretty clear concepts. One, Mrs. Murad used evaluative comments in public to personnel, and the administration has the full support of the board. And the rest was eloquently written by our attorney. So, I mean, if you need to see it in writing, I'm sure Mrs. Harvey would be happy to send it to you, but I was able to follow along and absorb those 2 concepts.
I would like that resolution in writing, though. Thank you.
Rita, you need to just talk into the mic.
Yep. So, Mr. Ingracia, I comment of being more thoughtful about what it is. So I appreciate that. I will say that the spirit of even today's meeting, that if there's ever a personnel issue, we went into an executive session. So even when the person's not here, the rules of engagement dictate that we don't discuss personnel issues in open sessions. So even in examples today, we respected the rules of engagement. So while I understand that we should be allowed to have an open forum, there are rules of engagement where personnel are concerned. So I think we've got to be very precise about how we use language, and especially when personnel is concerned. So while I appreciate the idea that we should be able to express when we disobey the rules of engagement where personnel is concerned, that's not cool. So I would support it too.
So if I may, I would add, so Mr. Angracia, I understand your interpretation, I respect that, but other people may have different interpretations. And that's the crux of the problem. If reasonable minds may differ, and as mentioned, there are protocols in terms of discussions of personnel, especially the superintendent. That's the only employee of the board. So there are ramifications to what we say in public as board members, and we have to be careful about what we say. And we have to follow the protocols. And as a board, I think we should be unified in terms of that approach. Otherwise, there's potentially issues in terms of not following our ethics and our agreed training as part of being a board member. So, I would support the resolution.
One last comment. When I spoke, I said I clearly identified that my concern was as a parent and not a board member. And I did not point towards the superintendent or Mr. Pepe. I said they do a great job. And I also held myself as a board member accountable that and at the end, if you heard what I said, it was parents feel that they are being gaslighted, that it is not fair, right? So again, probably a poor choice of word. However, there were just no clear guidelines provided at that time. And that's my opinion. Mr. Buccarelli, you can disagree to my opinion, and that is fine. But I did not point at anyone. Mr. Buccarelli did. He said, it's a charged word, and if you are pointing towards Mr. Alexis, he's done a great job. If you're pointing toward this person, he's done a great job. I did not use anyone's name, and I said, thank you. And my humble request is that clear guidelines be provided. I have it in writing, it's in recorded, so it is what it is. So, like I said, if there's any more comments, please.
I don't think there's any ambiguity about who runs the schools, Amber. So that's kind of a strange argument. That's all I'll say. I've read every word. I mean, I heard every word of that. I did not read it. I did not get it beforehand. I listened very carefully and heard every word of the resolution.
And have you always practiced that, Rich, that you haven't used evaluative language towards a superintendent?
Anthony, I don't know where this board is headed, but we had a situation today that troubles me. So there's apparently not a willingness to listen to advice of either a school board association or counsel to the board. And I didn't want to bring this up, but since you're at it so hard, okay?
I just asked you one simple question, right?
We had a meeting today of the operations committee. You are on the board of directors of the Watchung Little League. That gave the administration some discomfort with you participating in these discussions. The administration asked for an opinion of counsel that I was not involved in asking about, but they sent to me because I'm the chairman of the committee. Our counsel clearly said you have a conflict and clearly advised that you should recuse yourself. I sent you that email. I did not get a response from you. I offered that you could call our counsel. When today we had that meeting, I said, Anthony, we're about to discuss the Watchung Little League, just so you understand that. And there was no response from you. I said, Anthony, you're on. And you said, yes, I'm on. And then you said, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're asking me to recuse myself, I'm not going to. I'm not going to vote on it, but I'm not going to recuse myself. Now, not voting on something is abstaining. Recusing yourself is not participating in it because you continue to be present in the meeting and listen, which is a person who has a conflict of interest listening to a discussion that he shouldn't be listening to. I'm the chairman of the committee. It makes me very, very uncomfortable that you don't want to follow council's advice and put us and the board in an untenable position where now, and this was in front of the mayor and a member of the town council and the business administration. So if you're sitting here saying our board counsel is not worth listening to, and I'm not going to listen to her, then, you know, this is not going to be something that I think the rest of the board is going to be comfortable with.
Well, you're
And-
putting words in my mouth, both at what I said on the call.
Okay, well,
and
just tell me
you're
what you
saying
did say
now.
then.
And you did the same to Amber, Rich, and you've done the same.
I was on that call.
on the
I
board.
think he's,
So you
I
seem
think
to
the
like to
one
put
word you
words in people's
missed was
mouths quite a
comment.
bit, but you're
What
not
did you say,
I'd like to
answering my
Dave?
hear from
question.
Adam since he was also.
I was on the
attending.
meet. I was on the call. I think, Rich, what he said was, I won't comment, but I'm going to stay on.
I
and
won't take
listen."
any action, and I still pledge. I planned before any email was sent to me that I won't be making any votes. I won't be taking, you know.
But to Rich's
any
point, you
action that
didn't
would be-
recuse, you didn't take council's advice.
I did.
Right.
I
So,
did. I think
so
that's an
this is the thing. And
interpretation. That's
maybe
another
it's just a-
interpretation.
maybe it's just, it's not an interpretation. It's actually very clear.
You're
Maybe it's
deflecting
because you
from my
haven't had-
question, Rich.
Maybe it's
I
because you
honestly,
haven't
I'd
had
like to talk about
ethic-
current
just make me one
situations on the
point.
board.
Right.
Maybe it's because you haven't had ethics training yet, but there's a difference between recusal and not saying anything or abstaining. Recusal means you're not involved. You're not listening, so you can go back to the place where you have a conflict and have that knowledge.
Right,
That's
so you
what
can-
recusal means.
You went off the agenda, Rich. The point was, I was there to listen to a presentation that was very focused on a particular issue involving potential, what you said in the meeting earlier today, a FEMA grant with the bridge. You can't just decide you're going to jump to a side topic, have me, jump off the call at your whim, and then jump back on when, what, you were going to text me or something? It was a 2-minute comment.
Mr.
So-
Ingracia, just so you know, from
so-
someone who has to recuse themselves from certain things, because I am a part of the same teachers union as our teachers here, that yes, you can deviate from an agenda. And if the topic comes up and you have a conflict with that because you're in the same organization that this Board of Education is negotiating something with, then yes, you need to recuse yourself from that situation. Otherwise, you open up yourself and this board to public criticism and potential ethics violations.
You're doing a very
So,
good job of deflecting from the issue of this
Mr. Ingracia, can I
resolution.
please finish? Thank you. So as a teacher, whenever there are discussions about negotiation, myself and Mrs. Shar have to recuse ourselves from those, and we gladly do, because we support our teachers here and we want to make sure that they do get to negotiate a fair contract with this board. And that is what we are supposed to do as professionals. So when something comes up in a meeting and you're in a conflict because you're on the Little League board and you're also on this board, and we're negotiating a lease with the Little League, yes, our community could perceive that as you having inside information for both boards that you're on.
And that's why I
So even
agreed
if it
to,
deviates from the agenda, our council has advised you to recuse yourself. But I do want to bring this back to the original conversation that we had,
and I
which
disagree
is
with what you
my
said, by the way. I
motion
disagree.
to the resolution. Are there any other discussions regarding the resolution, or can we move to a roll call?
I just have one brief statement, Dory.
Sure.
You know, I've listened to the resolution. I've listened to both sides. I remember the comments that were made, and I also remember reading the 2 Echo Sentinel articles that came out over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, I'd really like to see less of those articles in the future. I'm not looking to minimize any of the difficulties for parents, students, or the school staff. I also don't necessarily vote to punish board member Murad, but I do think that the comments made are legally problematic for apparently what the board attorney expressed to you. You know, I think that it would have been helpful to have her here today to explain that, but I understand that, you know, other things can keep people from their conflicting obligations, and, you know, it's part of life. So I'll personally be voting for it, but pretty much just because I believe the board must legally distance itself from it. Thanks.
Okay, seeing as there's no more discussion, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
No,
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
No.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is there any other board business to discuss? Seeing that there's none, we're going to move on to comments from the public. Please remember to state your name and address before speaking.
Hi, good evening. Kathleen Ruperto, 45 Rock Avenue. I want to Oprah all of the board emails and texts in regards to this matter, as it looks that only Dory and Jen were the orchestrators of censorship among our elected board representative, Amber. Myself, as a teacher, I am appalled by your actions, Dory, to create a dictatorship among this board, as I am requesting for your resignation as board president this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have another hand raised.
Hi, this is Francesca Escalera, Parlin Lane. I just wanted to make a comment that I feel that parents may be confused and need additional support interpreting the state and CDC guidelines. I do come from a public health background, so it's easy for me to understand them and also understand all the confusion that they may cause and patience that everyone has to have in the process. But it is the duty of the school district to provide clear guidelines, which may mean interpreting those that are posted on the state's website. So with that being said, I would really appreciate if there could be additional transparency when it comes to the guidelines, even if they may be updated more than twice in one day. Thanks and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, Sonia Woods, Johnston Drive. I attended last month's meeting via Zoom, and I'd like to start my comments by stating that I'm speaking as a parent, which is exactly what Amber Murad said when she started her comments last week. She was speaking as a parent, and it was clear. I guess the roles of the board members not being allowed to say certain things only apply at certain times and to certain board members. I can tell you that I've spoken to current board members in the past where they have specifically said to me, I am speaking as a parent and not as a board member. There is a reason why parents don't speak up at Board of Ed meetings. And tonight's resolution is a clear example of why parents don't speak up. Your resolution tonight is silencing a parent's comment. Aren't Board of Ed meetings meant to give parents the opportunity to express their concerns or opinions about the school, whether the Board of Ed members agree or disagree with the concerns? Or are these meetings only meant for parents to express their concerns or opinions that are aligned with the majority of the board members? Parents are not speaking up at these Board of Ed meetings because they fear the backlash that their comments will have on their children or on them, given that this is a small town. Unfortunately, in Amber's case, the backlash resulted in public humiliation and disgrace. It's disgusting. As I was listening to your resolution, I was wondering if maybe I had a misconception of what the Board of Ed responsibilities are. So while you were talking, I Googled, what are the responsibilities of school boards? It led me to the New Jersey School Boards Association website, which I believe one of you just mentioned. And that website states the school board has a dual role. First, it's to represent the concerns of the citizens, the taxpayers, and parents to the school administrators. And the second is to represent the needs of the students and the school district to the citizens, taxpayers, and parents of the community. When speaking as a parent, Amber was expressing her concerns. She wasn't disgracing anyone. She should be allowed to speak as a parent. Why is that condemning when it is clearly your role as a school board to represent the concerns of a parent to the school administrators? Your actions tonight will further divide our community, and it in no way, shape, or form helps our kids' academic growth. These actions are unnecessary. Please stop wasting your time on these petty resolutions and focus on the important factors here, which are number one, our students, and number two, the needs of our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sonia Martin, 288 Hillcrest Road. I'm going to say by experience that I was confused with the CDC guidelines and all the process that is behind that. My kids got sick with COVID symptoms, so I thought that my kids could go virtual. And apparently 2 of my kids were allowed and 1 not, because the teacher said that was not COVID related, so they were not quarantined. How that is possible if the nurse called me and said that my kids need to stay home with COVID symptoms. In the meantime, I called the school. The secretary said, no, the teacher is wrong. Your kid can go to virtual. I called the Bayberry to let her know that my kid's gonna still stay home. And the secretary there said, no, your kids are not allowed to go virtual because it's not COVID related. So even the school doesn't know the protocol, how the parents should know. And now Amber is going to be publicly humiliated when she's just voiced a concern of the parents.
Thank you.
Just real quick, Mr. Farrar, I believe you had your hand raised and I accidentally lowered it. You can re-raise it and I'll let you speak now. I apologize for that.
Hi, this is Mark Ferrara, 45 Rock Avenue. I have 24 years experience in government, and seeing that board action from Dory Harvey is inexcusable and a public humiliation to Amber. I am appalled as a government employee. I'm appalled as a resident. I would never think that a person in the president's statue would carry on and do such a heinous action against a fellow board member over something so petty. This is ridiculous, and time for those type of people to move out of the board member seats and put people there that are worried about children, not worried about petty grievances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, Jessica Ingracia, High Oaks Drive.
I hope this is rock bottom, okay? Because this board has done a full 180 now from when my oldest child started school here in 2014. And I started seeing the decline of the district, what I perceived to be the decline of the district in 2016, 17, ran for the board in 2018 with what I interpreted as divisive and suppression tactics from the administrators at that time and a lot of board members. I came onto the board to change that. I served 3 years and quite honestly left disgusted with the leadership of this Board of Education. You have taken the tactics of the board that I fought to turn over and the administration that I fought to turn over, to turn the page on divisive, toxic rhetoric, petty personal agendas, and above all, a complete lack of focus on the core reason you are elected. And I'm seeing 2 of your faces that are not elected, you were appointed. And for you to participate in something like this is really shameful. You have done a 180 from where this board started to have a chance to change the climate and the culture of this district. And you're right back to where you started, even taking the tactics that the previous administration and board used and amped them up to the stratosphere. To censure a mother of a school district child, a volunteer in our town, in the schools themselves, and at the county level. I'm not even sure why board counsel would give you legal advice to formally censure. I was told by the New Jersey School Boards Associations multiple times over the years that the only people that can censure a board member is the School Ethics Commission. I would advise you to get a second opinion on that because I think that that is accurate. School Ethics Commission will decide who needs to recuse themselves and who can be censured. I don't think it's up to a board president and vice president who are seeking retribution for personal agendas or animosities. There's no place for this. Focus on the kids, focus on academic improvement, achievement in the district. But this sets a horrible precedent. It reflects so poorly on the priorities of this board. And if the administration is behind it, I think it reflects very poorly as well. It's a shame on the district and shame on you.
Thank you. We have a hand raised. Please make sure you state your name and address.
Georgia Glasser Nels, 4300D Long Beach Boulevard, Brant Beach.
I'm sorry, you are not a resident of Watchung?
I do not need to be, that is correct.
Well, then by all means. Mrs. Nels, are you there?
Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.